this is the 4-hour chart, as you can see down in the lower part in the black bar there. All right, and we can see that this is very macro view of what's going on. And we're definitely staying above the blue SMA that we see there. It is possible that we will be testing it again. You can kind of see this is the lowest that it's been, and it was just above the blue SMA there. The last low right here also didn't quite get down there. And we can also see the peaks that it formed. The last peak right here is lower than that peak up there. So we're forming a lower high than it was before. All right, so just kind of bear that in mind. So this right here is a possible destination point that it's going to be finding. And I say that because of two reasons. You can see that that was the last low, and that's also where the SMA is. All right, so generally speaking, I would say we're uptrending, which means that we would want to go into a long position. But remember, this is a very, very long-term chart for a trader. So we want to look at each little leg, and the leg that has been forming lately is more of a downtrend. So that might change our perspective. We're going to switch over to the 1-hour chart, and you can definitely see that. Also, we're looking at the MACDs. I kind of didn't point it out on the last one, but the MACD is starting to drop as well. All right, so here's the last low that we found. So that would definitely be a destination. Right now, we are currently sitting on the group of SMAs right through here that is acting as a support. We did have one little jog right down there. You can see the wick that dropped down and then came right back up again. So it is kind of holding at that area right now. All right, but if it does break through, I would say the likelihood of it dropping down to 69.26-ish level is pretty good. All right, let's kind of keep zooming in. Sometimes I look at the 30-minute chart and sometimes I don't. Usually jump to the 15 here. Okay, so now we're starting to look at some different kind of lows. We can see there's a low, whoops. We can see there's a low right here, and then another lower low right here. So actually this right here is more what I'm focused on for a trader, because you know it's possible that it would drop all the way down to this low over here, but that would be a goodness, let's see, that would be like a, what's the difference between 83 and 30? That's a huge drop. And it's not like it can't do that in a day, but that's kind of unusual. You can see right through here, that was 1 day's worth of trading. So it would take a lot for that to move that far. It might take a couple days, especially kind of going against the longer term trend. You always want to be a little bit careful with that. But you can definitely see it has formed, you know, lower peaks now for a while. So because of that, we can pick out this last lower peak, and that's where our stop would go if we were going to place a trade. Right now, that's almost 30 points above where it is right now. So we don't want to trade right now. What we want to do is wait till it comes up here and tests this level again. So that would be at 87. And then that way, we're putting a lot less risk on the table. So yeah, we're waiting for a drop, but we want to wait for a good entry point. So the first thing I would do is I would put in an alert right there. All right, and it shows it up as a dotted line. And I typically do this on the 15-minute chart. But when I'm actually trading, I will zoom in a little bit further. All right, so now if it decides that it's not going up there to test that level, and if it's dropping, which I suspect that it will, it would take a lot for it to drop past this point right here. So this would be a point where it would probably bounce from. So I'm going to put in another alert right there. All right, so now we're kind of sitting right in the middle of those things. And that is the span that is kind of a decision point. When those alerts trigger, I go and look and see what it's doing. If it triggers the lower one, well, let's see if it bounces and goes up. If it seems to have a lot of downward momentum and drops through that point, past that point, then we would expect it to drop even further. Now, if you see right here, on this part over here, I'm going to go ahead and draw in a box because what I'm seeing is a cluster of orders. It's not right there. Hang on a second. Right there, you can see it bigger let's see if I stretch out just right. All right, so you can kind of see that there is a cluster of a lot of orders. It's like a shelf right through there. So that is an area where it would find it would bounce, or it would find support, or if it breaks through, it would have a serious momentum to be dropping further. And again, we're looking at that level down there as the ultimate destination. Now that right there between, this point here and here, that's between 60 and 24-ish. So that's like a 40-point drop right through there. So that would definitely be big enough to trade on. What we're looking for is a big span where we want it to go, and we catch a little tiny piece of that. So my trades are usually maybe 10 points at most. And each number is a point. It's not actually a dollar amount. So, that would be for a 10-point trade for me is $500. So even catching a 5-point trade is huge. That's a lot for me to catch. So if we can catch the portion of it, I'm fine. So I think that's honestly what makes trading viable, is just waiting for those opportunities to get in and being patient. That's the tricky part. Because, as you can see here, it's somewhat easy to predict what's going to happen. But we really can't predict until it gets to these levels where I put my alerts are. All right, so up here, we can see if it went up to that point, the likelihood of it hitting that and finding resistance level and then dropping would be pretty big, because we are kind of in a very short-term downtrend right there. So as soon as that alert triggered, that's the point where you would want to get into a short, most likely, and write it down as far as you felt comfortable doing that. So anyway, zooming into the 5-minute chart, you can start to see. All right, so the blue SMA up here is probably going to be dropping down as this comes up, and it will probably meet at about that point right there, which also will make it a very viable point of resistance that we will see. And you can start to see the difference on the MACD here. We can start to see that it's very, very low right here. It's below the average line right here, and it's starting to come up. So I would say that the next viable leg is actually going to be going up. But since we're on a longer term downtrend, I don't probably want to trade on that. Just have to see when the time comes. But if we see a big, strong upward push right through there, maybe to catch that actually would be a little bit tricky. So I think it's best to stick with your trading with the trend thing and wait till it goes up, get into a good place, and then ride it down. I think that would be the better option, because you've got more, I'm more sure that it's going to find resistance up here than that it is going to find a bottom over here. So that's my prediction for the day. One last thing I'm going to do, I'm going to put in a line here. I'm going to put an arrow marker to show that we have made our prediction at this point in the day on Saturday. All right. And then we're going to come back and look at this on Sunday night or Monday morning, whichever works. The market actually opens for futures Sunday night at 6 p.m., but it's super slow, and sometimes things can kind of come clear during that period of time. But a lot of the times, it's just not a very good time to trade. So we're going to probably wait till Monday morning and then redo this.